thank you so much for coming today to the Designing for Drag panel brought to you by the Diversity Committee. Give a big round of applause for our esteemed panelists. Come on in. First off is the Angel. What an entrance. Tony. RuPaul's Drag Race fame. David Wallace. We have Jasmine. We have Christopher. We have Ana Lucia. And our moderator, Enza. If you haven't already scanned the QR codes to get the program, now would be a good time to do so. Whose mic did I steal? Did I steal yours, Enza?
Yeah.
I'm going to hand it off to Enza now. And maybe we can also start by having everyone introduce themselves.
Absolutely.
All right, fabulous. Thank you so much.
Let's hear it for Athena and the Diversity Committee bringing us all together today for talking about designing drag. I'm so excited to be your moderator. I'm Providenza. I'm a local drag performer. I'm also known as the voice of RuPaul's Drag Con and host that convention as well. Lover of drag, lover of trans and non-binary people, including myself. So I'm excited to talk. And I've never felt so concerned about my outfit being correct than today. So I want you guys to know that sometimes you got little actors who come to their fittings wanting to impress you, and I'm one of them. So Ana, you want to start us off? Just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. I'm Ana Lucia. I'm a costume designer. I've done a lot of different projects, but I think the one that works most for this panel is Pose.
Totally.
And I went back and forth between New York and LA, but I've been a member of 892 for a very long time, a very proud member. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Nice. Union strong.
Yes.
Christopher.
Hi, I'm Christopher Lawrence. I'm a costume designer, and the last thing I did was the Apples Never Fall pilot. I did Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, as assistant costume designer. The designer was Marlene Stewart. And I was on the board of the Guild for a few terms, and I'm happy that you guys all came today. Thanks.
My name is Jasmine Keller Creighton. I'm an actor. I've been acting since 1993. My first show was the John Larroquette show. I've worked in movies as well. I was in the 40-year-old virgin with Steve Carell, and someone brought up another movie that I was in, Blast from the Past. With, many years ago. But it's an honor to be here. I use glamorous feminine pronouns, and I'm excited to hear what we're going to do here today.
Hi, guys. Am I on? I got a big mouth. You can hear me anywhere. My name is David Wallace. I started in the Union many, many moons ago on Mad TV. I was a head cutter and fitter on that show, and started the workroom at Dancing with the Stars and a few movies. And my work is over there doing all those lovely things for my clients, some designing, not like you guys, but I enjoy doing clothes, making clothes. And I'm on Madlock right now doing Kathy Bates clothes. So I've had a illustrious career in this business, and I'm very proud of it. And it's so nice to meet all of you.
Hello, Tony Niguez, costume designer. I'm also 892 and 705. And I have been designing for drag queens since the early 90s, so it's been a while. And I'm the current costume designer on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Hello, hi, my name is The Angel. I haven't done what y'all been doing, but you know, one day I'll be America's Next Drag Superstar. So, other than that, I was a BuzzFeed cast member, on-screen talent for that, and then I'm a current graduate student at the University of Southern California. And then that blue outfit is mine over there. So, latex. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think that it would be helpful to start. Today's panel is called Designing Drag, Gender Performance, right? So we're thinking not just about drag, but we're also thinking about queer and trans people and the telegraphing of gender in different ways too. And something that I really love about doing these panels at the Costume Guild is that the whole part of the point of this is you know, to speak to the moment now, but also to emerge with like practical solves when working with whether it's drag performers or queer and trans talent, so that we're having like more fabulous creative collaboration and doing that like safely and inclusive ways. So I really encourage the panel today, like with your experience and things that you've emerged that are like supportive to our like lifelong journey of creating safer spaces for performers, like please like mention them today, because that's a lot of what we want this conversation to be too. But first, we're gonna start with some fun stuff. So I think it might be valuable to first start, and the Angel will start with you, is to kind of give a personal definition of drag for you. And for the folks who work on shows that maybe it's not drag performers, just thinking about like what does gender performance and costume mean to you. So if you want to just start with your personal definition of drag, we'd love to hear it.
Okay, so my personal definition of drag, I always say, is stepping into my inner deity. And the reason I say that is because I think that when you're like playing with gender, like for me, it's beyond that. It's something like I'm stepping into another worldly being and someone who like transcends these like societal norms that tell you like, oh, a man looks like that, a woman looks like that, or whatever definition you want for it. Like it's just really just, you know, transcending that and creating something that's going to be that like anyone can identify with and anyone can see. They're just like, it's not just playing with gender, it's art. And so, yeah, that's what I would identify as.
Love that. Tony, go for it.
So RuPaul is saying that you know, you're born naked and the rest is drag. And I believe that's what, you know, we stand by, just everything you put on. I mean, everybody right now could be considered being in a drag because you're dressing up, you know, for that role that you want to play. But as far as the show, you know, it's just this illusion, you know, these characters that come to life, and it's just an amazing thing to see every day when you see the runways and all that stuff that these characters, these personas put into their art. I think that's what I see, and from every aspect. I've also worked with a lot of drag kings, not on Drag Race, but on other shows, and so it just the whole spectrum. I think it's just gorgeous, and it's just, to me, it's just drag is just beautiful and all, you know.
Yeah, let's just walk down the line. I think this is an important thing to know.
For me, creating their vision, helping them find who they are in that vision of that dress they want to wear or whatever it is they want to create. And so to work with them, to look at their bodies, to put everything in perspective, men are built differently. That's just the bottom line. So it's up to me to try to make them look closer to that vision of them looking like a woman by shortening the waist, padding the hips, but not, most of the guys that I've worked with are more like, they do a lot of private parties, MCs, openings of hospitals and different things like that, so they want to look glamorous, 50s or whatever their dream is. And that, to me, I love doing, is helping them make their vision come true. I think that's the best part of my job that I enjoy.
Awesome. For me, when I first started doing drag, I was very young. I was like 18, 19, and I was working at a nightclub called La Quatrefoil in Los Angeles on Restaurant Row in La Cienega. And, you know, it had its own energy, right? Like we were doing celebrity impersonations. So I was doing Whitney Houston, I did Grace Jones and Tina Turner, Diana Ross. So we had uniforms, right? We had to come out and you know, be dressed accordingly to the particular star. But when I started acting, it was different because it depended on what the character I was doing. In my early days, I had this body, and you know, they preferred that I was in a little black dress, high heels, and some nylons, right? But then as I age and continue to work, you know, my characters changed. Like sometimes I was in jail, or I was someone's, you know, best friend, or you know, it kept evolving. And so the beautiful thing, and that's all drag to me, right? Because you know, the beautiful thing is the whole collaboration and coming into the space, allowing the designer to fully express their vision on me, like allow myself to be a palette and let them, you know, we draw and we create together, as opposed to me coming in and saying, oh, I know how to do it because I'm the queen or whatever. It's like, no, I want you to do what you do great, and so I can, you know, I don't know, be embellished or be, you know, lifted in my character, right? Because, you know, as an actor, I'm coming to do my part, and so I'm not going to deny the designer an opportunity to do their part. And I've worked with the best, right? Like, I've been in movies where, like, I've gotten an opportunity. Actually, Kathy Bates directed me on an episode of NYPD Blue.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I get to work with a lot of amazing designers, and it's just always a treat to come into the space and allow them to create.
Thank you for letting us do that. I think as designers, the most important thing we can do is listen to the people who come into the room. And so whether it's drag or any character, any actor coming in with their contribution, it's up to us to listen to what they're doing. When you said you were impersonating people, I remember on To Wong Foo, we had queens, established New York queens that came in, and the designer and the director wanted to fit them into the movie, but they were, you know, Miss Coco Peru, Joey Arias, they were people who had their persona. So it's also about listening to the actor and seeing how we serve them and how we serve the story. So I think, as RuPaul says, who was also in To Wong Foo, everything we do is drag as costume designers, and it's just really listening to your artists.
I completely agree with that. And I think it is every project that we work on that we want to have a conversation, because our art supports your art. And that's my favorite thing about costume design and TV film, is that we are all artists collaborating together to make this final product that is really something that everybody enjoys, but part of it is just the actual work that we do behind the scenes. Like, sometimes the putting together of the project is more interesting to me than the actual final product, because it's those collaborations with everybody that you get to come together. Pose was not a show about drag. It was really, you know, kind of stemmed from many different people, but Stephen Canales put together this incredible pilot about living in the Bronx in New York, and a lot of it was also based on Paris is Burning, the documentary. So it's a difference between drag, what we know now, and drag performances of the 80s and 90s, and mostly trans women. But yeah, it's a lot about listening, and it's about researching and putting together looks and having conversations with those actors and those directors and those showrunners and writers to make sure that everybody's vision has a voice. And it's a really exciting thing to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, what a spectrum. Like, I love the Angel that you talked about. Like, drag has the potential to be beyond gender, right? It's about imagination, about creativity. And I think, Anna, you speaking to the point of, like, you know, drag is a pathway, but there's also, like, some people are trans people and not drag performers, and, like, especially in a current, like, cultural context, like, there does need to be, like, distinction and understanding of both those overlaps and those different things. And I think, you know, to all of our designers, like, speaking to the collaboration and, like, that we want to create fantasy together, you know, is, like, I think where we all kind of meet in the middle, you know. So it's just so important, I think, for us to be like, what is the possibility here, right? Like, I share in, like, drag is so beyond gender for me. It's like, it's more about, like, how can I enliven things in my imagination that don't have a path besides drag, you know? It's like, and so I feel like it's just so valuable to have this spectrum. And then David, you speaking to people who are specific characters and wanting to speak to their vision, and exactly what you were talking about, like Coco Peru, like, it's such a wide spectrum of possibility that lives both in drag and in just trans and queer embodiment in general. David, you started talking a little bit about this, and I'd love to, like, start with you. So you're costuming a drag character, you know. What are some of the creative and technical considerations you're thinking of first, and how does that differ or not differ from, you know, other kind of character work?
That's a good question. The first thing I do is I look at the person who I'm going to dress, their shape, how they stand, and then most guys don't know what their bra size is. So I have to determine what their bra size will be.
Most women don't either.
Huh? That's true. That's so true. That's so true. Oh my God, that is so true. So what I try to do is I try different. I have them bring their bras and their hips, their pads, or whatever they use, and dress and get into that space, and then I take measurements on their bodies. I'll look at their bra, because that's the most important part. If there are different types of drag performers. They're out there, big, strong, RuPaul type. There are ones that are more subtle. There are ones that are more, they sing, they perform as actors. So I keep that in consideration with their bra size, because it's all about the bra. Because I had my gentleman that I worked with, he was a big guy, and he had a corset. And I went, I've never done mine with a corset on before. So he put the corset on, and it here, and everything went up here, and everything went down there. So, well, you don't need the hips, so you don't need a bra, so we need to figure that out. And I wrapped him in plastic and made a mannequin and everything for him, and stuffed it, and I had it, and I draped his dress, the black one that he's wearing over there, and draped it on there. I had a fitting with him. It fit perfect, and all I had to do was hem it. So that's what I learned working with guys, getting them to tell me, you know, how they see themselves. Sometimes they have broad shoulders, so I have to bring their shoulders in and get them say, well, you wear shoulder pads. So there's a lot of different tricks you do to make them look like they want to look, or how you see them themselves. Working on Mad TV, we created so many characters, so that was fun. So I knew how to do that. But be honest with you, drag, I did not understand. And I'm being a gay man, growing up in the 70s, you know, we didn't do that. You know, it's like, oh, we couldn't do that. But now that I'm around the younger generation of people that are feeling free to come out and be in drag and to be themselves, it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
It really is.
It's a beautiful thing, and I applaud you. Drag Kings, girl, I had no idea they were drag kings. Heck, I was in Palm Springs, they had their first out in Joshua Tree. Yeah. Their first gay pride parade. That was interesting. And that was the first time I've seen drag kings and knew what that was all about. I went, wow, that's so cool. More man than I am. It's awesome. It was just so cool to see. So I'm still on the learning process of dressing these beautiful people and understanding what they want. And I love creating their garments. I love working with designers who have a vision and can tell me what they see, and I can create it. I don't know if I answered the question the way you wanted, but
I'm not asking you to answer any sort of way. Whatever your knowledge is perfect.
That's what I feel when I talk about these great performers, because to me it takes a lot of damn guts and pride within yourself to do it, and I commend you highly.
Love the love in the room.
Can I just add something onto that really quickly?
Yeah, please.
And just like to let everyone know, we're all still learning. Like, I think like, you know, there's a lot of letters in the queer community. We're called the Alphabet Mafia for a reason. And we're it's all like a learning curve of just being like, it's what's more important is the willingness to learn. And someone who's like, you know, like maybe I didn't know a drag king existed, or maybe I didn't know trans women like do drag, even though trans women are the backbone of our community. Like it's the willingness to learn at the end of the day. And like, so like if you are like hearing things today, or even in the future when you're like doing this, you're just like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. That's okay. Like it's okay to walk in and be like, okay, I didn't know that, but I know it now. And like it's the same thing with like pronouns and stuff like that. We're like getting used to like they, them, and like there's like neo pronouns now, and like it's just like things are constantly evolving because people are evolving. And I think that's like just as long as you're willing to learn, as long as you're willing to be receptive to change, I think that's what's at the end of the day gonna help our community go forward. So.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable. Yeah, give it up for that. Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, you know, all of us here are designers or actors or performers, and, like, I think at the end of the day, we just all want to be creative together, right? Like, I envision a world in which none of these identities exist, and we simply are making art joyfully. And part of that just comes from, generous exchange, you know, and, like, the willingness to collaborate and learn and continue going. Yeah, so, there isn't a hierarchy of knowledge. It's simply a day-to-day process. Tony, I'd love for you to add, as someone who has kind of done sort of a spectrum of dragsters from kings and queens, What are some of the ways that you approach that creatively and technically that you've maybe learned over the years, kind of speaking to both gender for performers and maybe sometimes not? Like, what have you learned as a designer in that process?
So when I do custom work for an actual drag performer, it's very different than when I'm working on set for a TV or a film. When I work with them, we sit down, we talk about the persona, what do they want to give, what is it that what this is for. So we just really sit down and create this outfit together. I pretty much do more of the designing because I could tell them, yes, you want this to be this way, this could probably look better on you this way. So I give a lot of just let them know as far as a fit, what would actually fit better. But when it comes to creating that outfit, we do it as a team, with the performer, because I think they know what they're gonna wanna show. In the end, I do want to do more my design though, because that's what we are, we're designers. And but we collaborate and we create this together. As far as working with all kinds of different performers, it's just the same, all across the board. It's just really working with them and just really hearing them out. What is it that you want? I'm not gonna make something just because I'm not the type of designer that's gonna be like, I'm gonna do this, you're gonna wear it, and you're gonna shut up. I'm not like that. Especially when it's your custom and you're and it's just for when it's outside of doing the union stuff and it's just for custom work. I make sure I give them exactly what they want, and I get a lot of like really nice things being said. Like people are telling me, I still have a costume made 20 years ago, and I can still wear it. You know what you're doing, so stuff like that really, I think that also something, if I know this drag performer is going to be doing these high jumps and it's going to be doing these crazy moves, I got to make sure it's something that's going to be durable, that's going to be able to last, that's going to be made well, so they could actually, tell me 20 years from now, hey, I'm still wearing that costume made for me 20 years ago, not, hey, you made me something and the next time I wore it, it fell apart, So I want to make sure that quality is part of also the creativity. When it comes to when I do custom, when it comes to working with the characters, like per se, like on Drag Race, it's different. I do want to talk about that because the queens bring their costumes, but I design the stuff that every year we have a Rusical. Every season we have a Rusical. So the queens don't know what Rusical is going to happen, So I have to be there to design the whole Rusical for all the queens. We do a thing called the girl groups. So then they don't know what they're gonna do. So then I have to design those costumes. That's where we integrate like the whole they bring their costumes. It's a little confusing with Drag Race because a lot of them do bring their costumes. There's a lot of different costumes that are being shown by different designers. But when it comes to what's actually scripted and what's in the show, that's when I take the lead on that. So that's the difference. And I know there's a little confusion when it comes to that because there's so many. They're like, do you design the whole show? I'm like, no. They bring a lot of their own stuff. But and then we also do another part of the show that's called when we transition somebody like last season we had firemen, and then when that happens, I have to really take full lead because they're busy doing their costume. Now I have to come in and help these people transition. So when it comes to the padding, when it comes to all that, I have to be there. And one of the things, especially when it's even if it's a gay man, but usually when it's heterosexual men, they're like, well, how do I hide this? What do I do? So I have to introduce a tucking panty. I have to show them, pretty much how to tuck.
That's fine.
And all that. So yeah, that part I have to explain to them how that, because the queens are busy doing their thing, getting themselves ready. So I took over that. So that's when that I step in and
I bet you do.
Yeah. And I designed for drag kids. I designed for, actually people will have a dog who's male, like I want to put my dog in drag for an event, so even that, I've done that. So, just the whole.
Not RuPaul's.
I have a funny story about that. In Tu Wong Fu, the 3 leads were heterosexual guys. So the tucking concept was not something they really wanted to get behind. John Leguizamo had done drag in his shows before, so he was all for it, and he was ready, and he was honestly the easiest person to dress. But there was a place called Lee's Mardi Gras in New York, and they had something called a gender bender. And we could get Patrick into that, which is basically, I'm not sure how to say this in a crowd, it's basically a jockstrap with a fabric condom that had a leash that they wrapped behind them, and there was a buckle
on the back,
like on the back so they could pull it and then secure it.
Ouch.
So you can imagine how long the actors wore those.
We didn't have
maybe a
drag
week.
back then.
Yeah. And Wesley just wasn't into tucking.
Wow, incredible. So we learned about durability, bra size, and harness, jockstrap.
Gender bender.
Gender benders. Incredible. I love that, and I love that it's always sort of grounded in that collaboration and collective vision between the two folks. So I feel like, Christopher, you gave us kind of weight of this. So we have this timeline of designers up here who have created just as recently as I'm sure yesterday, and who have worked on projects around drag and trans and gender nonconforming people at different times and cultures. So I wanted to kind of talk about what was the culture that was happening during your project, and how you interacted with it both creatively and as a person. We've been talking about some of the ways we've grown and changed, and Christopher, I'd love to start with you that, you were working on Tu Wong Fu, which came out in
95,
yeah, So obviously a very different time thinking about, the way the culture was thinking about drag, thinking about queer people, thinking about trans people. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about what your experience was, and then Anna, I'd love to talk to you after about your experience going into that, as a queer person too, being on set, and how that interacted creatively and just with the culture at the time as well.
Sure. That's the thing about Tu Wong Fu that is very meaningful for me on a couple of levels. It was the first time that I was on set where people, like being gay was an asset. The actors would ask me, even the designer, when she first read the script, they would say, well, why is this funny? What is this reference about? And there was even a line that Patrick Swayze said that was a musical theater thing, and they were cutting it. And my big gay stereotype is I love musical theater, and I was like, no, you can't cut that. Here's why it's funny. And then they heard, and they were like, oh, okay, well, we don't get it, but if you guys will. And Tu Wong Fu, when we were filming it, Priscilla had not come out yet. So I would say that I don't really. It's hard to imagine what the drag culture was then. We did go to La Cage aux Folles, the director and the choreographer, and a bunch of us went and saw that show, so you can probably speak to that better. But me as a gay man coming out in the 80s, back then when you had a gay pride festival, there were two people that were on the news: the drag queens and the girls on bikes, and that was it. And I'm not a person who puts on drag. Although Marlene Stewart often in the boutiques of Soho would make me put on a gown or a dress and come out to see what it looked like. And of course I couldn't just schlep out there, I had to sell it. So I've been in drag a lot. When I was looking at pictures for the Tu Wong Fu costume there, the fuchsia, I found many embarrassing Polaroids of me in Patrick's clothes. So I got to Tu Wong Fu, and there was every mix of queen. There were girls that were transitioning. There were boys in dresses. That's part of the story, is you're a boy in a dress. And working with them, there were some women, some girls that I could see oh, this was just a mistake was made. This is a woman, a beautiful woman. We put a woman in a dress that had been on Iman. No alterations, nothing, just and she has transitioned and she works now as a hair person in our business. But it really taught me to appreciate the drag art and really see the courage to be a trans person, and put me in their shoes a little bit of what that must be like. And that's when I really learned to love everybody in my community and all the alphabets. It really changed my life. Meeting and working with the queens, and also being appreciated for who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's so important to speak to embodied knowledge that, we have as the lives that we live, right? As queer people, as trans people, as black folks, there's certain things we know because it's our life. And that's part of our creativity and our artistry, and how it kind of was a symbiosis for you to also then have more love and accepting and understanding of others. That's what it should be about all the time, right?
Yeah. It was twofold for me, because my dad was gay. So I was raised in a household where my dad and my Uncle Bill, but I was taught that you have to hide.
Yeah.
In the 70s, when my dad was a school teacher, and there was something called the Briggs Initiative in California, which was to outlaw gay people from being school teachers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got married to that guy over there, and he was in the gay men's chorus, and I was always like, oh, gay men's chorus is so gay.
I thought the same thing.
Gay marriage is so gay. But it was that I learned from that, like my own homophobia.
Totally.
You know, and Tu Wong Fu was really, you know, some of the first steps of being proud of who I am.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, Anna, I'd love to hear about your experience working on Pose. And yeah, just like the experience of culture making and queerness and in that show. And then after, I'd love to hear from Jasmine about your experience through time too, of like how, you know, things have changed as a performer and as an artist, you know, performing in drag or, you know, being gender fabulous as well. So Anna, can you start with just talking, a little bit about like your experience working on Pose and, you know, culture exchange and design and artistry and all that good stuff.
Well, thank you. I've been lucky enough to have worked on a lot of Ryan Murphy projects, and as we know, Ryan has been working very hard to make queer culture part of everyday culture, not just something that has to be called queer culture. And I loved Paris is Burning, and I, you know, as a total punk rock weirdo as a child, I was obsessed with that movie. But you know, we were very aware. I became such, and still such good friends with Jenna Mock and Stephen Canales, that the costumes and the hair and makeup was the sugar pill that we wanted people to take and to be able to be excited about, to get the real message behind the show, because the show is really a family drama. And at its core, it was a very family-oriented show. But we needed, I hate to say it, but middle America to take that glamour and be excited about that, to get the message behind it, and to get into people's living rooms and to start changing people's viewpoint. And I think we were really successful for those 3 years. The show it changed my life too. I mean, I've never been on a television show or any project where I'm so close with the cast and the crew and the writers and the director. Literally, like weekly, we all talk. And it's been years since the show is finished. And we support each other all in many ways, whether it's doing hair for events for some of our actors, or getting tailors, or rushing dresses to people just so they have something to wear for a red carpet last minute. I mean, we're very supportive and very protective, because especially in our political climate right now, it feels like Pose almost couldn't exist. So it did exist, and it's going to continue to exist. So it's really important for me to like be on television shows and projects where I can support that. And yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. You know, it wasn't just like we were just, you know, in the trenches every day. I mean, it was hilarious and fun, and the dance performances were incredible. And I loved what you were saying about learning how to like design for dancers, because it's so important. I can make something that looks great, and the moment they get out there, it's gonna split down the middle and be terrible. So, you know, being a set costumer for a really long time, I always design for set, because I've just been in that experience being a set costumer where the garment is so beautiful, and then the person has to act in it, and it just falls apart, and it's a disaster. So, you know, it's getting to work with dancers, going to the rehearsals, seeing what they're going to be doing, and having conversations about how we can support that dance or those movements. You know, one thing that was like ended up becoming sort of a thing on Pose that we loved, as just like a little aside, is Dominique Jackson is an incredibly beautiful, tall woman, and she would never wear anything lower than a 5-inch heel. Like, if it was lower than 5-inch heel, she called it a Hillary heel. She was like, I'm not putting that on. But, you know, when we were on location in New York, those doorways are not tall enough, so it became a whole part of it that they would capture her ducking into the doorway. And we just made the hats and the wigs bigger and bigger and bigger, just so that it became a whole thing, because she was proud to be who she was. And
awesome.
it was like another just little moment that for us it was a stance You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I'm not ducking, I'm not lowering myself. I will come in as I am.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I mean, always anything that can be both like say something as a message and be like a bit,
Yeah.
like we've succeeded,
television.
right? Yeah, it's good to like because they're. I remember that, like being like that is so funny. She has to tuck under the door,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that is, and like not everybody's gonna notice that, but that is so specific and both like important and funny, like fabulous. I love that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Jasmine, I'd love to hear, as someone who's been performing a long time, just like how maybe drag or gender performance has like shifted throughout time and different, at different moments in your career. I'd just love to hear you speak to that a little bit.
For sure. I came up in a time where people were not out as trans and non-binary. As a matter of fact, it didn't really exist verbally, right? People were not like outwardly, speaking that way. It was just different. There was no social media. We had pagers. I think pagers were popular. So it's just fascinating now. I love where we are. I love where the direction we're heading in, even though it appears to be dangerous or whatever, but it's just the appearance of it, because really all the shift and all the changes that are taking place have really been developing much, a long time ago. Trans folks have always existed. Drag queens have always existed, right? They were doing pageants in 1969 and 68 with, even before that, but, televising them, I guess, with Andy Warhol and, the Queen and just different things, And so it's always exists. So I always say, like, I get to carry the baton every once in a while, right? And that's a great thing. Like, I was on the first day of RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, I've been in videos. Like, Ru is someone that used to come see my shows. And so I've been in videos with RuPaul, and I've worked with some of the greats. Like, the last show I did was, it's coming out, I guess, in the fall, but Laverne has a new show called Clean Slate, and I play a character in her new show. But I just love how we are truly evolving, and everyone is finding their voice and their space in this place, right, in this time. It was challenging. They did want you to identify either as a boy or a man, or you couldn't, you couldn't really, tell for television, right? Like, they need to know who you were, right? And so I got to literally transition, and in the media, right? And I'm grateful for that. It took a lot of strength and a lot of wherewithal for myself, because every time, when they would call for me, I would either get denied, or I've even been like on the chopper room floor because I appear too feminine, at times. And so it's just interesting how it's come to this space and place, like, trans folks are out. I remember the day that Laverne was on the cover of Time magazine, and all of a sudden it was just like a flood of trans people everywhere. It was like, wow, where do they all come from? But I was like, this is a good thing, this is a good thing, because it'll change, the landscape of how we interface with each other, right? And how we hold space for each other. And, with the visibility came, more danger a little bit, right? People, well, I shouldn't say came out of danger. It was more revealed to us, right? Because social media came into play. So we got this instant information, and we got to know more about, like, Black trans women being murdered and killed, Black and brown trans women, or like how, people are not really surviving the way you're seeing them on television. And then this whole, television has changed. It's all about reality. I'm a sitcom queen. I was on sitcoms like in the 90s. And so I went from one sitcom or drama to the next. Like, it was NYPD Blue, ER. Like, there was always something that I got to work on. I was so happy that I was working so much. But then reality came in. I was like, oh, this is a new, a new form of, entertainment. But it shifted everything. They didn't need a lot of costume design. They didn't need a lot of stuff. You know, we were talking about, it was stylists or people to go and run and get the stuff, but no one was really making any costumes. And I was glad that, and I'm still glad that I've been in projects where you had to go in for the fitting, and I had to know my bra size and my hip size. I had to know because, sometimes they don't have a lot of time for, if you're not the top 5 or top 3, you better know, because they don't have a lot of time to be with you. So I might have been 4th or 5th, and I had to know, when I got to the set, what was going to take place for me. But I really love where we're going. I'm excited to continue to work in this atmosphere, right, and continue to create with everyone. It's always been a creative process. And drag there's something very spiritual about transitioning and putting on, makeup and hair and, picking out the right colors and the shoes. And, is this gonna match? Like, I thought about these earrings. I love it. I love in the movie Deborah Was Prada, she's like, that belt, we designed that for you. We picked that out for you. We chose, everything, like it's thought out. We're not just throwing things on. Like I thought about, Pride. I thought about like how I was feeling when I put this on. I was like, I gotta wear the fastening. I gotta put it all on, right? Yeah. And so that's the beauty of drag. That's the beauty of costume, and that's the beauty of evolution, right? Like we just keep adding to the palette, right? We just keep adding color and texture, and then you just see things like, I always say it's very important that every human being, especially in America, goes to another country. You need to go somewhere where you can't read the signs. Yes. You don't know how to order off the menu. And you just see the sun and the moon, right? But you're like, what is going on here? And I've had that opportunity. Like I filmed in other countries, and it's like, wow, how fascinating is this? And it's grounding, right? And it just reminds me, like, everybody is literally doing the best they can, and everybody has something, to bring to this particular table, right? So.
Totally. Yeah, culture is everywhere. It's like culture is our clothing, culture is the places we are. Totally. The Angel, I'd love for you to close out this question a little bit too. I'd love to hear, as someone who's, been performing in drag, both like online, IRL, how is that interacting with both your creativity and also the kind of messaging you're maybe implementing in your performance or in the kind of work you create?
Yeah, so I started drag in 2015, fresh into college, freshman year. My RA was a drag queen, and they were like, you should try it. I was like, I don't know about that. And then I was like, they convinced me. I did a drag show, and then, my life was ruined. But I did drag. No. We take a second. And we're back. So I started dragging in 2015. I did it up until the pandemic. I stopped during the pandemic because I did make a shift to more like online content. That's when I signed on to BuzzFeed, did that. I was like their resident drag queen for a while, and then I lost 150 pounds. And then I've returned just actually July 2nd last year. So I'm almost at my 1-year anniversary. But I came back into this like during pandemic times, watching like every fashion documentary under the sun, and I was just like, I want to be high fashion, and I was like, whatever that means. And so I remember going to every Rue Girls like post from, they post their looks on Instagram and tag all the designers, or the good ones do. And I remember I made a spreadsheet, and I was just like, every single person, I'm like, this person does this, and this person does this, and this person works with latex, and this person works with that. And that's actually how I met Tony. I just found his number, and I was just like, I called, I was like, hi, is this Tony? And then he was just like, yes. I was like, will you make something for me, please? And then you were my actual like debut return outfit. It was one that was based on Audrey Hepburn's little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's, revamped. So. Yes. So it became like this thing of like, instead of doing the nightclub system, which is like what I was used to before pandemic times, I wanted to make something that was more digital, more online, something that could last forever. Like, it's not something like you see it once at the nightclub and then, you know, you don't have the opportunity to see it again. So I became like this quality over quantity kind of person, and posting on social media, it's really nice because you can just like do it and walk away. Like, it's just like, I just like close my phone. I'm just like, I'm done. So getting in the habit of just doing like photo shoots constantly and meeting with designers and presenting my sketches and sketches that I've worked with like people to get drawn and getting things done in that way. And so, because I'm very specific when it comes to like my drag, like it's very detailed, it's very like, I'm not sewing myself, but which is why I get to work with all the amazing designers, but I have an opinion on everything, much to their dismay. And yeah, it's just been a very different vibe, like returning into a more digital space, but it's like created its own opportunity. So this coming September, I get to open TwitchCon, which is in San Diego. It's the biggest live streaming convention. I'm their drag opener. So that's gonna be super fun. And it creates like, I think it's the future for a lot of drag. Like, I think investing in the online space is, you know, we saw during pandemic times, like things closed, like things were gone. And we had to like figure out a way to be creative from the comfort of our homes. And so, yeah, I think like that's just kind of where things are headed. I think drag costuming it's definitely shifted more towards custom in recent years. And I think at the same time, like we're battling like fast fashion, like Shein and Fashion Nova and places that are stealing the designs of, you know, independent designers and just selling them in this cheapened version, which is horrible. And so I think like that's why I remain with all my custom stuff. I refuse to wear something off the rack personally, just because I love working with these independent designers, the ones who don't get credit. Like, I've worked with people who dress Lady Gaga and, you know, never get a tag, you know, like, but I think that's, I don't know, it's just been like a joy over the last year to meet so many designers, like from everywhere from Canada to the UK to New York City to Miami to here, and I just, they deserve just a lot more credit in my opinion, and I think that, like, that's really the backbone of drag. Like, you see all the looks on RuPaul's Drag Race, you're like, wow, that queen is so high fashion, but who made that? That's really the question, who made that? And like, they're not tagged at the bottom of the screen, like, and you know, maybe they should be, because so many people came together to make that look. Someone might have specialized in jewelry, custom jewelry, someone made that wig, someone made that dress, someone made those shoes, like, and I think that's, I just think that's wonderful, and that's been like kind of my shift into the more 2020, what year is it? 2024, Jesus. God, we're getting old. Yeah, that's just been kind of my experience, like, that shift.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, we all should be crediting each other's work. That's how it should be. And I think that's such a valuable thing to say because, in my opinion, if you're not crediting, you're kind of stealing and lying. So, you know, as I told you, I wear fits to impress you guys at my fitting. So I think that that's important to do that. And I think drag is such a great opportunity that it's like it's not that you're being like, make this thing. You're saying like, hey, let's make art together. Like, let's do this together. Like, it may be some ideas that I'm thinking of, but like Tony, like you're saying, like, it's still the design and the execute, you know, right? It's a marriage of and I think that, you know, us supporting each other in that way is so valuable and important and necessary because, you know, as we know with production workers, it's like, you know, I think us working this life, a lot of times it's hard, you know, long days and we only have solidarity with our teams. And it's important for us to say like, no, I see you. Like, I care about like what you've done, and that generosity of spirit is so important in the way that we work together. And at the end of the day, yeah, sure, it's a business, but it's an art form first, and let's make it about humanity, you know, let's do that. And I think that then you can't say, hey, can you fix this thing a little bit more? Because you've treated each other like, you know, companions and creative collaborators. Like, then when you say, hey, this is a little funky, it's not like, oh my God, I'm clenching my butthole because I'm saying something, or like, I did something wrong, you know? So I love hearing that, you know?
Clenching my butthole for another reason.
Yeah. And it's the gender bender, probably. Who knows how you're feeling about it, but... I want to open this up to everybody. And for the performers, I'd love to, you can say things that supported you, but I would love to hear like how you guys have partnered with actors, whether that's, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people, or drag artists to reflect like who they are in costume. And I want this to also be like an opportunity if you did have any like tips or stories that, like are talking about sort of how we, again, like creatively and safely and inclusively collaborate with each other. And I'm thinking about how you were speaking about pose, so maybe we'll start here, like how do you support trans and non-binary people like through costume, or like what are things that you implemented in your processes or things that you learned at that time to more safely and inclusively interact with artists and in design, or for the other artists on the panel, things that you've had where people have just like really made you feel like safe and comfortable to like be a part of the project. So let's start over here maybe.
I think probably the story I could think of just quickly is that in one of the seasons of Pose, one of our main characters is murdered. And it was actually a really beautiful way to show that happening and how it impacts the community and how it impacts the whole world around them. But our actress, Angelica Ross, was, it's a really big thing to shoulder as a person, as a trans person, as an actor, and you're losing this character that you've been building. So we had like all the creatives had a big meeting about it, and we were like, how can we show lots of love and support to this actor? So we had a conversation with her, and we talked through like how she wanted to look, what the storyline was about, and on my side of it, we created this sort of Tina Turner dress because she has this whole transition, but it's very beautiful. And we, one thing for Angelica was that butterflies for her is like a very sacred thing. And so we built all the lining, and in between every piece of fringe, we put butterflies. So you don't even see it, but it's for her. And it was the same with hair and makeup. We lots of support, lots of rehearsals, closed sets. And I will say the day that we shot that, it was the most emotional moment I've ever experienced. I'm sure we've all had that moment on TV, film, and other performances where you all come together and you have that sort of like high moment where it's all coming together and it's happening and what was in your head is now on screen. But it was to such a heightened degree because we just cared about this person and the story so much. I mean, Grip and Electric were crying. That's a big deal. Like, I've seen a guy get his foot run over and not show any emotion. Like, that's a huge deal. So you could feel it, and it's because we cared so much about telling that story, about representing that story, but also just about that actor and wanting them to feel really loved and supported. And I mean, she's gone on to do incredible things, and she's now in politics, which is so exciting, and we're all here to support. So it's, even the small things make a difference.
Yeah, love that.
I think it all goes back for me to RuPaul, who taught me a great hack. We wanted, when we were doing Ru's fittings, we wanted the full hair makeup experience. And of course, that is not a small ask for a drag queen. And Ru said, no, I'll just do sunglasses and lipstick. Oh. And that has carried me through so many fittings, because Patrick Swayze, Wesley Snipes, John Leguizamo, we didn't even know what their hair was going to be like, what their makeup was going to be like. They all tried on hundreds of garments just to see, again, because they have no experience on making themselves look like women. And I have all those Polaroids. Very fascinating. So that's really, that little hack really saved me. It's just, and I use it on non-drag characters too. If you have to do some amazing evening out and the actress comes in, from working out, lipstick and sunglasses changes everything.
I have a funny story. I did the promo for the Tu Wong Fu. Like, they didn't shoot the promo. They brought in 3 actors to dress up and be in the car. I shot that promo. that you see on the buses everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what's important, and you brought it up. It's important that you know how, that you understand that you have to know how to reference. What I learned at La Cage working at the clubs is I didn't know anything about Barbara Streisand or Liza Minnelli or Bette Midler, but because the girls did those characters so well, I was like, oh my God, I love this. And then as you grow into your artistry, you know how to reference. And that was a key I used to have with Rue, in the backstage. It's like, oh, the young girls, they don't know how to reference yet. But by the time the show comes on, they'll learn how to reference, because you want to be able to go back to the 50s, you want to go with the 40s and 30s, not only for the look, but the texture, everything. It's very important to know how to reference and go back through time. And then you get to play, you have more to play with. And I think they did a great job on, what is that show, The Sex and the City, with the lead girl, like how they played with color. You always felt like she really was a New York girl, just for the fashion alone. And I think that's really important. Like, I did a film called Punks for this director named Patrick Ian Polk. I was one of the top 5 that time. But like, my character was literally a drag queen. And so we tried on so much stuff, right? But like what you wind up seeing was interesting. But like, it took a long time to get all those looks together, because I wasn't the only one. I had the sisters, we were called. So we had to look kind of similar, but not the same. So it was just a lot of reference, like who do you want to look like? And I think we did all Sister Sledge songs. So it was just all over the place. And I always remember that's very important, like to do, if you don't able to do a storyboard, just like think about who am I referencing, for this moment, because every star does it. Everyone that's on those runways and on those carpets, they're all referencing something or someone.
I'm taking a little bit from something.
Yeah, it's none of it's really OG, but
I have not had the opportunity or pleasure to work with major stars when it comes to drag. The only thing I've ever done once was when they did the Anna Nicole story, and they called me in to do. There was a guy who was going to be Anna Nicole at a nightclub, and I had to make a dress for him. That was the only thing I got a chance to do, but we knew who that person was. But the gentleman that I have up there in the black dress, his name is Alopecia. And never liked that name, but that's his name. But when I first met him, I had asked him, I said, who are you? What does Alopecia do? Well, she's trash, she's this and that. No, honey, we know all of us gay boys can be trashy. What I want to know is, who was the woman that you're trying to emulate? He goes, well, I said, well, can I help you with that? And he goes, well, what do you have in mind? So, as you see on the other storyboard there was an old Fredericks of Hollywood book that was printed out by Fredericks in 1976 to 1946. Okay, I love that book. Yeah. And I said, let's go through this book and pick out some silhouettes that might work with you. And he said, okay. So we would go through the silhouettes, and I said, so I see Alopecia, this woman, and he showed me a picture of himself and his makeup. I said, oh, she's very glamorous. I see her married to a doctor in Beverly Hills in the Borscht Belt. And he goes, okay, I get it. And I said, so we started working with that concept of a nice, rich Jewish woman who did charity functions. And said, oh, okay, I like that idea. So I came up with that black Dupioni dress he's wearing with a muted lace sequin over the top, and came up with that. And he wore that to a function at Cedars. He got a job that next day. They asked him if he would perform for one of their fundraisers. So that was my moment of saying, oh my, I guess I could do this. And he is an amazing performer. And so that's the only, I haven't done what these fabulous people have done, but that made me feel good that I was able to help this person create that persona and create, and I said, go back and look at the 50s and go back and look at the 40s. I said, because women were very TV portrayed women to be very glamorous. You didn't come out of the house without your makeup. You didn't. I said, that's how women were. I said, you have to look at that how they carry themselves, how they hold their hands, and the daintiness of a woman. Being a big guy, you've got to bring that in. So he would, and so it worked. So that's what I get out of it, is watching you guys do those things that they used to do back then when they were just so glamorous and wouldn't go out of the house unless the actors wouldn't wear nothing but the 6-inch heel.
Yeah.
Crazy, that kind of stuff excites me. And that's what I get out of it.
When I work with trans folks or non-binary, I make sure I don't gender assign items. I don't gender assign shoes. I don't gender assign, the clothing, because one thing that I have noticed is some of the producers will be like, we can't custom make everything. Please get stuff at, say, gowns at Saks or something. But a lot of those gowns are not going to fit, a male form, let's say. And so we have to be considerate, because I don't want to bring those gowns and make this trans performer feel uncomfortable, because all of a sudden all the, everything doesn't fit, or their arms are a lot longer than the dress, is made for. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen. So I really talk to the producers and let them know, this has to be custom, or let me at least make these adjustments before the fitting to make sure that they don't feel horrible in what they're going to be put on. And if you knew how many, and not to just any costume designers, because I love my costume designers, but I also work with thousands of drag queens throughout the years. So many times drag queens have been on set for other projects, and they've called me like, Tony, is there any way you could come on this set? I'm like, they're not paying me to be on this set. He's all, everything doesn't fit. Everything is like, they got all this stuff and it's all like, they'll tell me like, it's all female size and nothing fits me, and it's like, is there any way you could talk to the designer or anything? I'm like, I'm not gonna step on anybody's job, but it's just, not everybody has the experience of working with, with that. So I understand that. But I always try to do that, especially not, like I said, not labeling stuff. But what female size shoe are you? I stay away from any of that. And I just think just to make sure the person feels comfortable, and I don't know what kind of, how they're gonna feel about, what kind of, it's not just the pronouns, but just how they're gonna feel at a fitting. I wanna make sure that they feel special, like everybody else is feeling special. So I really take that into account.
Can we repeat the question?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mostly, we're just exploring instances in which you as an artist felt supported while being costumed or working collaboratively, and any offerings specifically to costume designers or people who are working with drag artists that maybe might be a valuable either technical thing to consider or just a spiritual thing to think about when working with queer and trans people.
I like to be a woman, and what I mean by that is and I've been at Tony's house at 1 in the morning, being and you could be a space, and I enjoy that you're typically men, and put quotes around that, don't mind being shirtless and whatnot, when they're trying on the stuff, because it's people are at the beach and stuff like that, and chests are out, but Tony will still be I'm gonna give you a whole room, you go in there and don't, even though nothing down there is showing, still giving me that space to feel comfortable, where, cause gender journeys are different for everyone. I myself, I'm gender fluid, so I'm someone who kind of teeters back and forth between being a guy and being a girl, so I definitely appreciate those kind of accommodations. It's not oh, you're a boy, you should be fine just showing your chest in front of people. So those things are maybe you don't consider when you're just looking at queer performers, and you should. Other things, I love being told yes. I love being told that this idea in my head, even if it's sounds a little wild, that we can make it happen. And I think that's a part of the fantasy element of it. It's this, oh my gosh, how can we figure out how to make that look like it's floating even though it's not? How can we figure out how to make those proportions look like that? And I think that's a part of working with a drag performer a lot of the time, is that you're just this idea seems a little kooky, but just being open to trying to figure it out, because it's gonna be a little unconventional compared to let's say we're just fitting for I don't know, but just stuff like that. I think that's something to consider. Also, yeah, and also drag is different for everyone. So not every drag queen does cinch their waist. Not every drag queen does wear boobs. Not every drag queen does wear padding. And so we're definitely shifting into more of an age where drag is seen in all kinds of forms. There are bearded drag queens. There are drag queens who, you know, don't tuck. That's another, there's drag queens who don't tuck, and like, they're like, I like showing a little, you know, bulge. And so like, and that's okay. Like, just being open to like, that drag is also evolving in the same way that, because there's no picture of what like the average woman is, you know what I mean? Like, a woman can be anything, just since as a result, drag can be anything too, so.
On that note, as a drag king performer, maybe you should answer your own question for us.
Oh, sure. I mean, I echo a lot of things that the angel was saying. I mean, I think just like, you know, everybody feels a little weird about their body, so sometimes like giving us the space to kind of have that moment and interact with that, I think is really valuable. You know, I think you guys all know this, but, you know, bodies, clothes, it's very sensitive, you know, and I think like, you know, I think like for me, a lot of it is like don't make assumptions as well, you know, like, you know, because a lot of us use our bodies as messages, like, right, like I do more of like a gender fuck kind of drag that's like, again, like I'm dressing up like a flower, not like a boy, you know, like that to me is like the drag, you know, and I think, but then there's instances where like, you know, like today, for example, like I'm wearing a binder where like folks, you know, like you might have like trans people or transmasculine people who like, they don't wear standard bras, they wear binders, you know, so like they might, you know, like it's like giving opportunities for also people like, you know, I know Athena's emerging with some resources of like, there are different parts of our bodies that we interact with in different ways, but then like sometimes in drag, like I think it's important as someone who is like distinctly butch and gender nonconforming, and then sometimes I like to be out, because to me that's like a message to say like, I can still like embody butchness and masculinity and have like the best boobs you've ever seen while I got them, you know, and then when that changes, when I get to, you know, medicalize my transition in the way that I want, like that will be different, right? So I think it's like, yeah, no assumptions, realizing that drag is like again, like an expression that is sort of beyond, and that's the whole fun of it, right? And so like allowing ourselves to let ourselves to think beyond and imaginatively and not be, you know, I have goofy shit that I'm like, so I'm gonna make this thing where it's like, I'm gonna be a testosterone bottle, but it's like, I'm gonna be like kind of like a Italian Renaissance clown, and it's like, that makes complete sense to me. And there's gonna be one person in the audience who gets exactly that reference, and like, and it's for them, yeah, and I think that like, you know, I think I work in the RuPaul, you know, universe as well, and I love that, but I think what it has also created is unfortunately a culture of homogenizing what drag is and almost explicitly gendering it even more, despite the fact that that show has performers of all different, you know, genders and things like that. I think that, you know, for me, it's like remembering that like drag is not a homogenized art form. And I think since you asked specifically, and just to remember that like, I love my queens, but like there's all kinds of drag performers, and specifically drag performers who are not doing, you know, a feminized drag are not paid as well. They are not booked as often, you know, and you know, to think about that even creatively, like when you have opportunities to disrupt, like maybe there's a drag artist in something, like, I don't want to take the gigs away, but also like I know tons of kings and performers who are also professional actors who also have that capacity. So just like thinking like drag is a beautiful opportunity to broaden not just our concepts of gender, but just like art and creativity more broadly, you know?
Add on to that really quickly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Add on to that really quickly?
Yeah, of course.
Where's my camera? I'm gonna use this opportunity to say, cast drag kings on RuPaul's Drag Race. Other than that, though, also, really quickly, also believe people when they talk about their bodies. That's another thing. Like, believe them. I cannot tell you how many times I've told a designer, I got a big head. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I know big heads. I'm like, no, I got a noggin, okay? Like, I was like, whatever big hat you're gonna make me, make it like twice as big as that. And they won't. And then you'll get it. You'll be like, I told you I had a big head. So like, other things like drag tights are very slippery. So if you have like stockings, they don't stay up. you kind of need like something that's gonna like catch on to that, or like some kind of like perforation that's gonna keep it up. And they'll be like, oh, but I know slippery tights. Like it's different. I promise. Like it's not the same when you're wearing 4 layers of tights, and like it's gonna be more difficult. So that's all I want to say. Like when people talk about their bodies and their experience with drag, please just believe them. Like you might be like, no, I know better. No, believe them, please.
Yeah, and I mean that's really a lesson for all of us, right? Like believe your artists, like when they're expressing that. I think that's how we create authentic performances and collaborations, right? We believe each other, we trust each other. So we're gonna take it out to the audience. If folks have any questions, yeah, right here, go for it.
You talked about making the show really.
I'm Hoda, I'm a costume designer. You talked about bringing in the shoulders a little bit, and you also talked about shortening the waist, right? So I have 2 questions. One is, when you bring in the shoulders, do you cut the shoulder pads? Do you work with the shoulder pads to bring in the shoulders?
It depends.
If you have shoulder pads in your item.
I cut the shoulder. Most of the times when a shoulder is cut, it comes past the bone here. Okay, I cut it in towards the crack of the arm, and then and as far as I can get it here, and then give them more ease in the sleeve so they can move their arm.
I see. So the body, so it goes in. All of it goes
into the sleeve. Exactly.
Second question is about shortening the waist. I know that, of course, it depends on the size of the talent and all of that, but genetically speaking, if I said that right,
it depends on how tall.
1 inch and more.
It depends on the average. Center back neck to waist is 16 on an average woman. Yes. So if a man, if he's about 5'8" or 5'9" or whatever, it could be from 17 to 18 inches in length. So you don't ever want to go to their actual waist. You want to bring it up by 2 inches up to an actual 16, because then that way you can fake it when it comes down. It makes it appear they have longer legs, and that works really well.
Got it. Thank you so much. That was the magical number. Was number 16. Thank you so much. I came here for that.
You should have asked me that earlier, man.
She's like, if I don't get to ask this
question. That's fair. Totally, go for it.
Yeah. I have a big mouth too. So we talked about references. I think it's super important. I'm a classically gay boy, so I love all the Judys and all that. But I think as costume designers, I think we should get the references too. Like if I say, why are we gagging so, a queer person's gonna say, we bring it to you every ball. So what are some references that we're missing? Like what are some things that costume designers can do to keep themselves present in what's happening in our communities? A suggestion?
Yeah.
Queer culture is everybody's culture, and I think identifying queerness as a culture is really important. And like realizing that's like, that to me is the first thing, is I think a lot of times like with the LGBTQIA of it all is that people think of individualism, but it's like we are a collective that is constantly iterating, changing, and like we're birthing most of this stuff. So like, and I think like to me it's like, I think, just speaking to like finding yourself in different places. Athena and I met at my drag show that I produced like for 3 minutes on that night, and then like 3 weeks later we're like doing a trans and non-binary panel, So I think for me it's like, how do you enmesh yourself in places beyond the ways that you move through the world? And like a great way to do that is like checking out a drag show or going to like a queer, free, trans runway thing. Like that is gonna be like, also books and history and music, but like people, that's the way I think.
And make some friends. Yeah. Like make some gay friends. Go find a gay friend. Everyone needs a gay friend. Okay? Everyone does. They're gonna keep it so real with you too. Y'all know what I mean. So like, I've learned so much in my life, like outside, like, so I'm a Latino, I'm Boricua Nicaragüense. So, but like, I've learned so much from like I didn't grow up around a lot of like Black people, like, but I've learned so much just from having friends that come from different walks of life than myself. So be open to perspective and be open to like, I don't know, just like something you're not used to. I think that's like a rule for life.
To say that when you bring fabric to your cutter to cut a dress for a gentleman, and when they brought me the fabric to do the Anna Nicole dress, they brought me this cheap, god-awful sequin and cheap-ass lining, and they wanted me to make this fabulous dress. I told them, well, good luck with that, because when you do that, you have to remember you're going to put it on a man. It's got to have some substance to it. You have to think about the inner linings that's going to go with it too, because you're going to see his foundation and everything else on it. So there's a lot to think about when you want to make a dress for a man. Knits are forgiving, okay, but I work with a lot of silks and woven fabrics. So there is a difference. So you have to put that in mind too when you design a dress for a man or a woman or a king or whomever. Those things are very important. And cheap fabric would be your worst nightmare on camera. It's just the worst. You can't get the look you want with that.
I think to answer the question, his question, or their question, was I think some of the words, like for example, when I make something for some of the drag queens and they'll look at themselves in the mirror, they'll be like, this is stupid, you know, but that means they love it. You know?
Oh yeah, slang.
Make me look fish. Make me look fish.
Slang.
I just want to look as fish as possible.
Yeah.
That means they want to look as feminine as possible. So wording like that.
Totally.
Things like that.
Yeah, like a high compliment for me is like, I look stupid as hell. You know, and I like love that. I'm like, and that's so important where there is like culture difference again, like that's in language.
That's
you know?
just basic slang too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of slang that we all should familiarize ourselves with, because everybody uses it. Oh, I look dope. Well, okay, cool.
I don't know if that's what
cuss on this panel? Are we allowed to?
It's gonna happen.
And so.
Oh, okay. Because I constantly say, I'm like, I don't look. I want to look pussy. Like you see me, you're just like woman. Like yeah.
I think that when we're working and we're creating our own, you know, there's always the obvious thing, and then hopefully we try to move off of the obvious thing.
Yes.
And on Ray Donovan, Kate Menig played our a character in there, and she came in and she said, "Thank you so much for never using the word butch," because that's all she had. Every character she'd ever played was said, you know, Lena, butch, da da da, you know. And so I think it's for all of us to also expand our, like, there's the thing we all go to, or the common thing, and for us to expand our vocabulary.
Yeah, I had to do that myself. With the new binary thing, I got myself in trouble a couple of times with that. Because I said, oh my gosh, she's so pretty, and the girl's like, you can't say she's. I said, oh, what do I say? We got they or them. And it was something I had to learn too, so it works on both ends. Whether you're straight or gay, you should familiarize yourself what the new culture is and what the new phrases are, and so forth and so on.
I think too, just putting the work into the research. I mean, you know, like.
Goes back to that.
Yeah. I mean,
Goes back to research.
Yes, and I mean, you know, anywhere from, like, Ryan will reference something like, I want it to be Butterfield 8. And I know what that is.
Immediately.
Right?
Yeah,
It's a certain
exactly.
nightgown that Elizabeth Taylor wore in a movie. So it's just like reading, watching every old movie.
Yes.
Putting the work into it. Because it's not just something you're going to know culturally. You actually have to, like, do the research, do the work. And we all do the research, right? You're talking about referencing. It's, you know, God, it's 20 years ago. It's like, I guess it's vintage now. But, you know, 90s is not just the references. You should go as far back. Go to the 70s, go to the 40s, go to the 30s, see what all those references, read the books, start getting yourself involved in that, because now you have an opportunity to be able to be like, oh, I know exactly what you want, I know exactly what you're referencing, and here it is. And they're going to respect you more because you put the work into it.
TCM is your friend.
Yes. Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, since the word is offensive, the word butch is offensive, what is the appropriate word to use that is not offensive?
As the local butch, I'd love to answer this question.
What was the word?
They were asking about butch. So, like, I think what Kate in that instance was speaking to is that this is actually a great connection. So, butch historically, like within LGBTQ communities, is like a specific identifier that has specific like roles and ideas attached to it historically, right? So, you know, butches historically were like working class, you know, typically like masculine folks who sometimes in their day-to-day lives passed as men as a way to survive. And obviously that has iterated and changed throughout time as, you know, gender nonconformity has become, you know, I'm not gonna say accepted, but like different. And so like for me, like I'm a butch, and that's a positive word. There are butch identified people, that's like a proud word to use, but it is for Kate like doesn't utilize that identity. So I think what more it speaks to is not that the word is offensive, but not to ever think that a word means the same thing. That a word that, like, I think for her, she's probably like, I'm just like a person, and like she is androgynous, probably people would say. But like butch is a word you claim. So I think I would just say that what my like tip would be is just like, there's all these words, there's all these pronouns, and what you think is going to be, each person is going to be like individual in their you know, usage of those words or that. Because like butch isn't a negative word. It's just for her, she doesn't identify as a butch. People are calling her a butch, and it's like more like if I were to say like, you're a snowman. You're a snowman. Athena, you're a snowman. You know, it's like, it's just calling someone something that's like not something that they claim. So like, I think that like, you know, if someone's trying to say like someone is masculine or is, you know, and trying to be like, I would say like going broader is always more valuable, because if I see something that says butch, like I'm not thinking of Kate Menning. I'm thinking of me, you know, which is like someone who like lays claim to that word is moving through the world in a very like visibly gender nonconforming way. And has like a historical relationship to that word as well. So I think more what the tip would be is like, is that like these words mean different things for different people, and it's not that they're offensive or they're wrong, it's just that for different folks, depending on their lives, that might not be the language that they use to refer to themselves. So I think like what that emerges for me is to ask, hey, what are the kind of words that you use to like describe yourself or your gender identity or the way that you move through the world? And like where I'm gonna say like butch trans dyke, Kate's gonna say something else, you know, or, you know, and I think for me, like none of those words are bad things. Those are like important historical language that I use. So I think instead of being like, is the word wrong or right, more to ask, hey, what do you use to like refer to yourself? Because that's always gonna give you, first of all, a more interesting answer, and just recognize that like these words mean different things to different people, you know?
Thank you.
One more question? Anybody else? We did it.
Awesome.
Thank you, Anna, Christopher, Jasmine, David, Tony, and the Angel. Let's give it up one more time for the Diversity Committee organizing this. And thank you to the Costume Guild for having us and getting to have this opportunity to have these conversations. Happy Pride.
Thank you, everybody.